He was 32, worth $11.3 billion, and he'd never once seen the color red. Think about that for a second. Not on a stop sign, not on the glossy sole of a Louboutin, not even on the blood he drew when he sliced his finger opening yet another acquisition contract. To Alexander Sterling, the world looked like an old faded film, just shades of slate and ash every sunset, a smudge of zinc against a dull sky. People often assumed he lived in constant wonder given his empire. But the truth, he lived in constant grayscale, a muted existence in a vibrant world. It was a silent personal limitation that no amount of wealth could overcome, a constant reminder of what he was missing. Tonight, though, that all changes. Why? Because a waitress who pulls in $12.50 an hour plus tips is about to hand him the single most expensive thing he has ever owned. And no, it's not another company or a rare piece of art. It's a spoken picture of the entire planet in full glorious spectrum. And once you hear how she does it, you'll never look at a menu or another human the same way again. Seriously, prepare to have your perspective shifted. Alexander walked into the Harborview Cafe every Friday at 7:42 a.m. sharp. Not a minute before, not a minute after. It wasn't just a habit. It was a ritual, a precise cog in his meticulously ordered life. He always headed for the corner booth back to the wall, a strategic spot, where no idle chatter could reach him from behind. His order was as predictable as the sunrise black coffee, though he only knew it was black, because the pot said so. It looked the same as everything else to him, and an egg white omelet. It tasted, he often mused, exactly like the paper plate it arrived on, utterly bland. He never looked up, never offered a thank you. He never really needed to. His money, his status had spoken for him since the day he turned 21, creating a silent barrier between him and the rest of the world. He was a ghost in his own routine, unseen and unseeing. Then there was Mia. 26 years old, the shift manager on Fridays, she was a whirlwind of energy. Her ponytail always seemed a little too excited for the early hour, her smile a little too bright. Mia possessed a truly uncanny superpower. She remembered every regular's first name, and more remarkably, every irregular's last sorrow. She didn't just serve coffee, she observed, she connected. Beyond the cafe, she juggled a second job, night classes, and creative writing. Her professor, a notoriously tough critic, once told her she had synesthetic promise. What did that mean exactly? Basically, it meant she could taste colors and feel hues on her skin, a heightened sensory perception that most people could only dream of. Tonight, without even knowing it, she would need every single ounce of that extraordinary promise. One glance at the billionaire's untouched toast, sitting forlorn on his plate, and Mia knew something was off. It wasn't just the uneaten food. It was the subtle slump of his shoulders, the distant look in his eyes. Without a word, she refilled his coffee, a silent gesture of care that went against his usual transactional encounters. As she poured, she leaned in slightly and whispered, "You look like you lost a color you never even had." Alexander's fork halfway to his mouth froze mid-air. No one ever noticed anything about him, let alone something so profoundly personal. It was as if she'd seen right through the monochrome veil he lived behind. He slowly lifted an eyebrow, a flicker of genuine surprise in his gaze. "I'm colorblind," he stated, his voice a low rumble. "Congenital achromatopsia. I see the world in percentages of light, not pigment. Everything is just light and shadow." Mia didn't flinch. Instead, she crouched beside the table, bringing her eyes level with his. It was an intimate, disarming gesture. "Then let me lease you some pigment," she offered, a playful glint in her eyes. "Just 1 minute, no charge." She closed her eyes for a moment, gathering her thoughts. then began. "Red." She started, her voice soft but clear as the temperature of your cheeks when you tell a white lie. It's the sudden hush in your chest, that gut-lurching feeling when the airplane drops unexpectedly. It's the first startling drip of a nosebleed you didn't expect, metallic, warm, urgent, a tiny drama unfolding. Alexander felt something deep inside him shift, like the heavy tumblers of a safe door finally cracking open. He didn't know red no, but he absolutely knew the airplane drop. He knew that visceral lurch, that unexpected metallic tang. He cleared his throat, a rare display of nervousness. "What about blue?" He managed to ask, a new curiosity sparking in his eyes. Mia smiled, a genuine, expansive smile that reached her eyes. "Blue," she replied, her voice now a gentle, expansive breath, "is the exact opposite of claustrophobia. It's exhale. It's the sound of the wind rushing past your ears when you stick your head out a car window at 60 miles an hour, exhilarating and free. It's the precise pause between lightning and thunder, teaching you how to count the miles of your own fear, giving you a moment to breathe before the boom. Blue is the vastness, the quiet promise of space." By the time the breakfast rush finally ended, a good half of the staff was openly eavesdropping, trying to catch snippets of Mia's vibrant descriptions. Alexander, still processing the raw emotion of her words, pulled out his wallet. Then he paused. He looked at Mia, really looked at her for the first time. "I'll pay you $1,000 for every color you describe," he said, his voice surprisingly firm. "1 hour tomorrow night in a private room upstairs. I want the full spectrum." It wasn't just a business proposition. It was a desperate plea for connection, for vision. Mia's rent was 3 weeks late. The thought of that looming deadline, the pressure of her financial struggles, was a constant, dull ache. She heard herself answer before her pride, which usually stood tall and defiant, could even begin to object. "Deal," she said, meeting his gaze. "But I choose the menu. You eat what I say." A flicker of challenge, a hint of her own terms in her voice. The next evening, 8:00 p.m. sharp, Alexander stepped into what he assumed was a candlelit storage room. Mia, with her innate ability to transform the mundane, had converted it into a makeshift tasting studio. Twinkle lights. He assumed they were colorful, though they looked like tiny glowing smudges to him, hung like carelessly scattered stars. A single small table, 2 chairs and a blindfold sat waiting. It was an intimate, almost theatrical setup, utterly unlike anything in his sterile world. First rule. Mia said, her voice softer than it had been in the bustling cafe, but still carrying an undeniable authority. "You will not see. You will feel. You will experience." She wanted him to truly immerse himself. Second rule, no phones, no names, no net worth. Tonight, you're just Alex. She stripped away his titles, his defenses, leaving only the man. He nodded, oddly nervous, a sensation he hadn't felt since his early, uncertain days in business. She gently tied the blindfold around his eyes, plunging him into complete darkness. Course, 1 yellow. She carefully placed a warm lemon bar into his hand. "Yellow." She began, her words unfolding like a story, as giggling at a joke you didn't quite get, but wanting to get it so badly you laugh anyway, a pure, unadulterated joy. It's the squeak of sneakers on a gym floor, the sound of youthful energy. It's the smell of sunscreen mixed with chlorine, that official, unforgettable scent of childhood summers you probably hired someone else to enjoy a bittersweet memory. Alexander tasted tart, sweet, and unexpectedly memory. Something rigid inside him, something he hadn't even known was there, loosened its grip. A faint, unfamiliar warmth spread through him. Course 2 green. A single snap pea was placed delicately into his palm. "Green," Mia continued, her voice now almost a whisper, "is the very first day you don't need a jacket, that glorious feeling of emerging from winter's chill. It's the hush of a library when you realize no one is chasing you, no deadlines, no demands, just quiet contemplation. It's the profound moment you realize your parents are just people and that they're scared too. A sudden humbling understanding." He swallowed the pea. It tasted, he thought, like forgiveness, like acceptance. They went on. Purple she described as the immense courage it takes to genuinely say, "I was wrong." Orange as the raw, liberating feeling of the first time you let yourself truly cry in front of someone completely vulnerable. Pink as the soft, insistent sound of a heartbeat when you finally slow down enough to actually hear it, a rhythm of life itself. Between courses, he asked questions he'd literally never asked anyone, questions that had been trapped in his grayscale mind for decades. Did rain sound different when you knew it was gray? Truly gray? Did money feel colder than human hands? He was digging, searching for answers beyond the visual. Mia answered him not with facts, but with stories, rich and deeply personal. She told him about the night her dad painted her room the color of almost mourning, a hopeful pale hue. The afternoon her mom sold her engagement ring, not for bills, but to buy a giant box of crayons, an act of defiant beauty. The first time she realized rent was due, and that dreams, unfortunately, weren't legal, tender, a stark lesson in reality. Each story was a brushstroke painting a world he couldn't see, but was beginning to profoundly feel. Word, as it always does when billions are involved, leaked. A notorious gossip site ran the headline, "Sterling Heir Dating Diner, Girl Paying by the Hue." The financial world, ever skittish, panicked. Investors freaked out. Stocks wobbled precariously. Alexander's phone erupted, a cacophony of urgent calls and texts. He did what he always did in moments of crisis. He retreated into his familiar grayscale, canceled the next meeting, and with a heavy heart sent Mia a check for 10 grand. The accompanying text was curt, a desperate attempt to reassert control. "Consider our arrangement concluded." He was trying to protect her, he told himself, but deep down, he was protecting his own carefully constructed, albeit colorless world. Mia, however, wasn't one to be bought off. She sent the money back, not just untouched, but torn into confetti, the shade of pure disappointment. She included a short, sharp note, a powerful declaration of her values. Color doesn't like being bought. It likes being believed. It was a truth that hit Alexander harder than any financial loss ever could. 3 days later, Alexander sat alone in his opulent penthouse, surrounded by priceless monochrome art that now seemed utterly lifeless. He ate takeout that tasted like cardboard and regret, a bitter meal. He opened his balcony door, hoping for some distraction, some escape. The city below sounded alive, a symphony of car horns, distant laughter, the soulful cry of a saxophone, but to him it felt like nothing more than static, a meaningless hum. That's when it hit him, a profound, undeniable realization. The only color he truly craved now was the vibrant sound of Mia's voice describing it. His world, once merely gray, now felt utterly bleak. He found himself Googling, of all things, how to apologize without money. The irony wasn't lost on him. He closed the laptop, grabbed his coat, and did something he hadn't done since his college days. Something completely unscripted. He walked. No driver, no security, no precise schedule, just him putting one foot in front of the other, covering 27 blocks to the Harborview Cafe. It was an act of raw, uncalculated desperation. It was 11:07 p.m. The Harborview was closing down for the night. Chairs were stacked neatly on tables, the lights half off, casting long, eerie shadows. Mia was there alone, mopping the floor, humming off-key to herself, lost in her own thoughts. Alexander stepped inside breathless, his heart pounding in his chest, not from the walk, but from sheer vulnerability. "I can't buy you a sunset," he confessed, his voice a little rough, a little raw. "But I can watch one with you and not check the time. I won't look at my watch, I promise." It was an offer of presence, of shared experience, something far more valuable than any sum of money. Mia leaned on the mop handle, her eyes studying him, searching for sincerity. Still colorblind, she asked, a hint of a challenge, a test in her tone. Still colorblind, he admitted, his gaze unwavering. "But I'd like to borrow your eyes. No fee, no strings attached. Just borrow them." She studied him for a long moment, a silent assessment. Then a small smile touched her lips. "Last course, Indigo," she said, and turned, walking out the door. He followed her without hesitation. They sat on the old wooden pier, the city lights shimmering faintly on the dark water. "Indigo," she explained, "is the profound, terrifying pause before you finally say, 'I love you,' and the overwhelming, beautiful relief when you finally do. It's the sky right this second. Can you feel it, Alex? It's the color of almost, of maybe, of tomorrow. It's the deep, rich potential of everything yet to come." Alexander, his hand finding hers, intertwined their fingers. "Teach me tomorrow," he whispered, his voice filled with a hope he hadn't known he possessed. 6 months later, Alexander funded an art school scholarship in Mia's name tuition, specifically for kids who taste color in their souls but can't afford the paint to express it. He still can't see red, no, but he wears it every single day now, a vibrant splash against his monochrome world, because it makes her laugh. Their travels are far from luxurious buses, hostels, sunrise, hikes up forgotten trails. At every single stop, Mia describes the palette of the world around them, and he, with newfound eagerness, memorizes the feeling, the emotion, the story behind each hue. Investors surprisingly learned that the sterling stocks stabilized and then soared the day he announced he was stepping back from day-to-day operations to pursue pigment research. The headlines, once scandalous, changed dramatically. "Billionaire learns heart has more receptors than eyes." It was a story not of financial triumph, but of profound human connection. So what does this all teach us? Color isn't only light, it's a language, a profound way we understand the world and each other. Sometimes the richest man in the room is actually the poorest listener, completely deaf to the vibrant symphony of life. And sometimes the waitress with holes in her sneakers owns the only doorway to true wonder, a perspective money simply can't buy. Ultimately, love, real connection, is often just paying attention, truly, deeply, paying attention, and it's always, always on the house. If you've ever felt gray inside, stuck in your own monochrome world, drop a color in the comments below and tell us what it feels like to you. What's its texture, its sound, its memory? And don't forget to subscribe for more stories that prove the loudest thing money can say is nothing compared to the quiet, powerful way someone truly sees you.